Welcome to World True Crime, where we delve into the darkest mysteries and uncover the stories that demand justice. On October 30th, 2011, David Swift reported his wife missing after returning home from a Halloween party the night before. The previous night, Karen arrived back home, tucked their daughter Ashley into bed and slept with her. The next morning, when David woke up, Karen was nowhere to be seen. When the police search began, they discovered Karen's abandoned vehicle on the side of a rural highway with a flat tire caused by a rusty screw. Initially, investigators revealed no signs of foul play in the vehicle or at the Swift residence, but suspicions quickly began to surround David. Karen Swift was a 44-year-old mother of four living in Dyersburg, Tennessee. She was cheerful and took on several jobs, such as cleaning houses and working as an aerobics instructor, in order to help support her family. According to her friends, she was devoted and self-sacrificing to the point that her needs came second to others. Despite her efforts to maintain stability for her children, Karen's marriage to David Swift was fraught with tension. Karen and David's relationship had a history of infidelity on both sides. David had previously engaged in an affair that resulted in the birth of another child. Although they reconciled after this incident, the trust between them remained fragile. In September 2011, Karen filed for divorce, citing ongoing issues in their marriage. This decision came just 3 weeks before her disappearance. The filing for her divorce marked a significant turning point in their relationship. Karen's decision to seek independence raised tensions at home. David reportedly reacted negatively to the divorce, feeling threatened by Karen's desire for autonomy. On October 29, 2011, David Swift made a significant decision to relocate his family from Arkansas to Dyersburg, Tennessee. This decision was reportedly made independently and rapidly following ongoing tensions in his marriage to Karen. David had secured a job in manufacturing management in Dyersburg and purchased a new home without prior consultation with Karen. The abrupt nature of the move left their eldest son Preston behind to complete the school year. This decision to separate the family during such a critical transition raised questions about David's motivation and intentions. Karen saw their new home for the first time while unloading their belongings, an experience that added to the complexity of her situation. As the family settled into their new environment, Karen attempted to adapt despite the rushed transition. She quickly found ways to earn money by cleaning houses and teaching aerobics classes. However, David's controlling nature began to manifest more prominently during this period. Friends noted that he was not keen on Karen working outside the home, which contributed to the rising tensions between them. The move marked a turning point in their relationship. David's behavior became increasingly erratic as he struggled with feelings of jealousy and insecurity regarding Karen's independence. Reports indicate that he began stalking her during outings and confronting her about her interactions with friends. This backdrop of tension and control set the stage for the events that would unfold in the following days. Investigators would later scrutinize these dynamics as they pieced together the timeline leading up to Karen's disappearance. In the early morning hours of October 30th, 2011, David Swift contacted law enforcement to report that his wife Karen Swift was missing. David expressed concern for her well-being, indicating that he was worried about her whereabouts. This call initiated the formal investigation into Karen's disappearance. David's report prompted police to take immediate action, leading them to gather information about Karen's last known activities and her interactions prior to her disappearance. As part of the investigation, police began searching for Karen Swift. At approximately 3 p.m. on October 30th, officers discovered her white 2004 Nissan Murano abandoned on the side of Millsfield Highway, roughly a quarter-mile from the Swift family home. The vehicle had a flat tire caused by a rusty screw found embedded in it. Upon inspection, law enforcement noted that there were no signs of foul play inside the car. Personal belongings such as her keys and purse were missing. Forensic testing of the vehicle yielded no evidence of blood or struggle. This discovery of the abandoned vehicle raised further questions about what happened to Karen and led investigators to expand their search into the surrounding areas. At home, David claimed that he last saw Karen around 2 a.m. when she returned home with their daughter Ashley after attending the Halloween party. Ashley had called her mother to pick her up from a friend's house on her way back. David told the police that both the mother and daughter went to bed shortly after arriving home. During subsequent interviews with police, David mentioned that he briefly checked on Ashley. After realizing she was safe, he returned upstairs to sleep. His account of the events raised questions among investigators regarding the timeline of Karen's disappearance and his potential involvement. David also indicated that he was unaware of any plans Karen might have had for the night and expressed confusion about her sudden absence. Witness accounts revealed a pattern of controlling behavior exhibited by David Swift towards his wife Karen Swift. Friends of Karen testified about his jealousy and possessiveness, noting instances where he would exclusively call Karen while she was out with friends. Friends also confirmed that David had a tendency to stalk Karen while she was out. This had led to confrontations of a serious nature in their relationship. These behaviors raised concerns about Karen's safety and contributed to the investigation into her disappearance. As detectives gathered evidence, they noted the significance of these testimonies in understanding the dynamics of their troubled marriage and David's potential involvement in her fate. In the days following the disappearance, David himself went to law enforcement authorities and offered his help in finding any trace of his lost wife. One notable detail when he arrived at the local station was his use of crutches. According to him, he had re-injured his knee, which had been operated on a few months earlier. An injury to his knee coinciding with his wife's disappearance, given their troubled marriage, seemed too good to just be a coincidence. On December 10, 2011, a significant breakthrough occurred in the investigation into Karen Swift's disappearance. Human remains were discovered in a cemetery located less than 3 miles from the Swift family home. The discovery was made by 2 individuals, John Robinson and Mark Rickman, who were visiting the cemetery when they stumbled upon the remains. Law enforcement was promptly notified, and investigators arrived at the scene to secure the area. The remains were later identified as those of Karen Swift through forensic analysis. An autopsy was conducted to determine the cause of death. The medical examiner concluded that Karen had sustained blunt force trauma to the head, which was classified as a homicide. This finding shifted the investigation from a missing person case to a homicide investigation. The autopsy revealed that the trauma would have been fatal if Karen had been alive at the time of injury. However, due to the passage of time since her disappearance, determining the exact circumstances surrounding her death proved challenging. Investigators noted that there were no signs indicating that the murder occurred at the cemetery. Rather, it appeared that Karen had been moved there post-mortem. The discovery of her remains prompted a renewed focus on David Swift as a suspect. The nature of her injuries and the location of her body raised critical questions about his involvement in her death. Investigators began to scrutinize David's actions and statements more closely, seeking any evidence that could link him to this tragic outcome. Investigators uncovered that Karen had obtained a second cell phone, which she used to avoid being monitored by David. This phone was kept secret from him, indicating a desire for privacy amid their troubled relationship. During their investigation, David claimed he was unaware of this second phone. However, authorities discovered that the number was programmed into his work phone, raising suspicions about his knowledge of Karen's actions. During interviews with investigators, David appeared preoccupied with Karen's behavior rather than expressing concern for her well-being. Detective McCree noted that David's inability to focus on anything other than his wife's alleged drinking and partying habits suggested he might be hiding something. Despite these observations, investigators struggled to find physical or eyewitness evidence linking David to the homicide, causing the investigation to stall. In the months following Karen's disappearance, David relocated to Alabama and remarried. He remained an involved parent to their daughter Ashley, but did not provide any new leads in the case. Ashley expressed a growing desire to understand what happened to her mother but felt increasingly hopeless about finding answers. Authorities also examined David's claims regarding Karen's behavior after they moved to Dyersburg. He suggested that she had changed due to new friendships, particularly with Bill and Kathy Bona. This narrative was scrutinized as investigators sought to determine its relevance to her disappearance. From December 16 to 20, 2011, forensic examinations were conducted at both the Swift home and Karen's vehicle. Investigators found no signs of foul play in the house but noted some disarray in Karen's bedroom. They discovered 7 gallons of bleach in the home, which David claimed were for cleaning purposes related to a dog poisoning incident involving a neighbor. As the investigation continued in January 2012, law enforcement made public appeals for information regarding Karen's disappearance and death. They sought witnesses who might have seen her or had knowledge of her last known whereabouts. Despite these efforts, the lack of concrete evidence against David hindered progress in the case. While authorities pursued various leads and gathered testimonies that pointed toward David's potential involvement in Karen's murder, they ultimately fell short of obtaining definitive evidence. During 2011 and 2012, the investigation remained open as they continued to seek justice for Karen Swift. On August 8, 2022, David Swift was charged with first-degree premeditated murder in connection to the death of his wife, Karen Swift. This marked a significant development in a case that had remained unsolved for over a decade. The arrest came as a shock to many in the community and to Karen's family, who had spent years grappling with uncertainty regarding her disappearance. Ashley Swift, Karen's daughter, expressed her confusion and distress over her father's arrest. After enduring years of investigation without a clear suspect, Ashley found it difficult to process the sudden change in circumstances. "I was trying to figure out why," she remarked, highlighting the emotional turmoil that accompanied the news of her father's charges. The context of the arrest was particularly striking for the Dyersburg community. For more than 10 years, residents had followed the case closely, often discussing it amongst themselves as they sought answers about what happened to Karen. The lack of progress in the investigation had left many feeling frustrated and hopeless. Therefore, when authorities finally announced David's arrest, it stunned both family members and community members who had long awaited justice for Karen. Danny Goodman, the prosecutor at the time, believed that all his predecessors could not get the case to result in a decisive verdict due to an inadequate approach. He stated that personnel who sought justice for Karen were simply waiting for a supposed key piece of evidence that could help prove that David was guilty. As the case unfolded, it was later learned that such a piece of evidence didn't exist. During the investigation, the COVID-19 pandemic broke out, and the entire world, along with Karen's case, came to a halt. However, the prosecutors, instead of stopping their efforts, took that time to review around 30 large bins of files related to Karen's murder. Goodman stated that they never found that one big thing that could prove David was guilty. What they uncovered instead was the fact that the case was very much like a puzzle with a clear motive. Commenting on the mindset of David, the prosecutor stated, "I think he saw that he was losing control." It was later revealed that throughout the course of their relationship, David was able to control everything Karen did and everywhere she went. However, he noticed that his control over her was starting to slip away. In addition to the loss of control, Karen going out for drinks to party, and an impending divorce all added to his frustration, causing him to plot the murder. The pieces of the puzzle the prosecution put together resulted in a concrete theory that the murder of Karen Swift actually took place. Sharing the details of the alleged crime, the prosecution stated that the murder took place inside the Swift family home, and then David staged a series of events to make it look like an accident. The events supposedly took place as follows. On October 30th, when Karen got a call from Ashley, she picked her up. Both of them returned home and had fallen asleep beside each other in the bed. From here onward, David moved Ashley into a different room and then proceeded with his intentions by dragging Karen to the garage and violently stomping on her head. To make the murder look like the aftermath of an abduction, he loaded Karen's body into the car. After that, he drove to the cemetery, where he dumped her body and covered it up to make it look like she had been abducted. In the days that followed, David willingly came to the authorities and volunteered to help find his wife's killer in whatever way possible. The prosecution also stated that he would come to the authorities on crutches to emphasize his inability to drag Karen's body. In addition, he showed that he was using the crutches because he had re-injured his knee after undergoing knee surgery that had taken place in prior months. In addition, the prosecutors also refuted the possibility of Karen actually leaving on her own and being abducted. The fundamental basics for such a claim were that several illogical things had to be true. For instance, Karen would have had to have plans of meeting someone if she was going out on her own, but there was no evidence to suggest such a thing. In addition, if she didn't go out on her own, why would she wake up David by moving Ashley into another room and moving Kelly from David's bed? Another key factor worth considering here is the fact that toxicology reports had shown that Karen had taken Benadryl before going to sleep. Benadryl is a sleeping aid, and if Karen had a plan of going out after dropping off Ashley at the house, why would she take a sleeping pill before she supposedly went out? To add more concreteness to their theory of the alleged crime, the prosecutors provided a lot of evidence. However, it was deemed circumstantial. In addition, the evidence had been uncovered more than a decade ago. A major claim they made rested on the toxicology report, which highlighted the use of a sleeping aid and the fact that phones were inactive after he got them home. They also stated that the information pertaining to Karen's secret phone and David's demeaning comments was a lie and shared new details. Up to this point in the trial, it was revealed her secret phone had no activity on it after she had gotten into bed with Ashley. However, a forensic extraction found that the phone had indeed been in use, and a call to the device's voicemail was made. The forensic reports also detailed the fact that the call was made at 9:55 a.m. on October 30th. By this time, several hours had passed, and investigators had not found Karen or her phone. In addition, it was also revealed the phone had been connected to the family's Wi-Fi, and the only adult that was home at the time the call was made would have been David. To back their claim of David faking his knee being injured again, the prosecution referred to a neighbor's testimony. While speaking to the court, one of the Swift family's neighbors had stated that David helped them move hay bales. The approximate weight of the hay bales was around 60 pounds, and the neighbor claimed that David was helping without using crutches. The prosecution had painted a circumstantial theory backed by evidence that showed David had committed the murder. However, the defense refuted such claims. Allegations against David were largely based on the claim that he had been a controlling husband, but his lawyer, Daniel Taylor, presented a different fundamental perspective and narrative. He stated that David Swift was not a husband trying to control Karen's life, but was one who was simply concerned about his partner. Details about Karen's behavior that were revealed throughout the trial were that she was involved in alcoholism and partying. However, testimonies given by the neighbors had shed much-needed light on Karen's activities during the trials. One of the neighbors had mentioned finding Karen passed out on their sofa naked during a party, and David was called to come pick her up. As per the information from the testimonies given during the trial, Karen was supposedly involved in some sort of sex ring and was interested in seeing other men. In addition to these details, the defense attorney also argued that there was insufficient evidence to support the state's description of the murder. He highlighted the fact that if Karen was indeed stomped on the head, why was there no sign of blood in the garage or the car? He also brought into question the state's description of David staging the attempt as an abduction by stating that there was no evidence of David leaving the house that night. Another critical fact that Taylor reiterated was that the medical examiner, who had determined Karen's cause of death, no longer believed that she had been stomped on the head. The defense held their ground on David injuring his knee again. He went on to claim that even if it were to be assumed that Karen was stomped on the head, doing so would have been impossible for David. At the time of the murder, David was on crutches, so he wouldn't have been able to stomp on Karen's head using the injured leg. In addition, his injured leg would not have been able to support his own body weight while he attempted to stomp on her with the other one. This claim was further solidified by the testimony of David's physical therapist, who stated that David had extreme difficulty walking and lifting. The defense lawyer also ruled out the possibility of blood being cleaned up using bleach. The prosecution had cited a picture of bleach near the pool, but Taylor categorized the evidence as insufficient by stating that the murder took place in October and the pool got bleached during that time of year. Ashley had also testified against what the prosecution claimed. She stated that it was her own mother who moved her to a different room. Her reconciliation of the event was called into question, but she stated that she knew it was Karen who moved her because it's natural to know what one's mother feels like. To solidify her testimony, she even went on to say that she is comfortable going to the grave knowing and believing it was Karen. Apart from this, Ashley also believes that her father's injury alone was enough to refute the prosecution's claims of him stomping Karen. She mentioned that Karen was an athletic woman, and someone in her father's condition at the time of the murder simply could not move or overtake her. To further emphasize David's innocence, Taylor stated that the phone the prosecution was referring to was based on unreliable evidence and again referred to David's condition and inability to commit the murder. Based on the available information, linking the phone to the murder does seem a bit far-fetched. It is possible that Karen had forgotten her secret phone at the house because, when going out, she would have woken up after taking a sleeping aid. In addition, the defense did claim that David was concerned about his partner. If that claim is believed to be true, it's possible that he made the call to check the voicemail and determine her whereabouts. The weakest aspect of the case against David Swift was the absence of physical evidence. Investigators found no incriminating traces in the house, the vehicle, or on his person. Additionally, there was no murder weapon, leading prosecutors to theorize that David had used his foot despite his visible physical limitations at the time. Throughout the trial, David's defense argued, despite objections from the state, that the charges were politically motivated. They suggested that with no direct evidence tying David to the crime, the sheriff and district attorney, both facing re-election, felt compelled to pursue the case under political pressure. When the jury returned from deliberations, they delivered an unexpected outcome. David Swift was found not guilty of first-degree and second-degree murder, as well as attempted first-degree and second-degree murder. However, the jury remained deadlocked on the charge of voluntary manslaughter, ultimately informing the judge that they could not reach a unanimous verdict. The indecisiveness pertaining to the voluntary manslaughter allegations eventually led to a mistrial in June 2024. Since then, new developments have emerged in David Swift's case. His ex-wife, Kelly Essman, has come forward with allegations that he stalked her. During an appearance on 2020, Kelly revealed that she met David on a dating site 3 years after Karen's death, and the two married in 2016. In October 2024, the Tennessee Court of Appeals denied a motion for David's legal team to dismiss the voluntary manslaughter charge in Karen's case, to which he pleaded not guilty. This charge will be revisited in a new trial. David remains in custody awaiting trial on the voluntary manslaughter charge, while also facing separate stalking charges brought by his ex-wife in Alabama. The complexities of both these cases are being examined as all those involved seek justice. Thank you for joining us on World True Crime. Stay vigilant, stay curious, and remember, every story deserves to be told.